Guys, it's May and we're back to the mini album, and tonight I'm going to show you, we're going to start working on this first page, which is our first actual flap page. And I've gone ahead and made these mats because I wanted to be able to explain to you what we are going to do. We are going to make the mat for this section that we cut using the flower punch board. Now this can get a little fiddly, so I went ahead and did this so I could show you exactly what we're doing, okay? The first thing we want to do is get our measurement. Now this piece of paper is 10.5. This is, let me move the mats away because I want you to see exactly what we're doing. We're working on this piece of paper. This one is 10.5 inches wide by 7 3/4 tall, okay? Now I want my mat to have a 1/8 inch border all the way around. So when I do my measuring, I've got to allow for that, and that's what I'm going to show you here. We are going to have an 1/8 of an inch gap on this side, an 1/8 of an inch gap on this side, but in this center, because this is technically 2 pages, okay, we're going to have a 1/4 of an inch gap, because 1/8 is for this page and 1/8 is for this page. So that's why I wanted to show you this. So when we do our measurements, we're going to have to allow for that, and here's how we're going to do it. As far as our height goes, it's really simple. Instead of cutting it at 7 3/4, we're going to cut it at 7.5. Basically, I'm just cutting it in a 1/4 of an inch smaller. That's going to give me that gap on the top and bottom. For width, because this is 10.5 inches, I know I need to go ahead and take a 1/4 of an inch off to give me these 2 gaps, okay? But because I need 2 gaps in the middle, that's another 1/4 of an inch. I know this seems tricky, but once I get it done for you and you see it, I think it'll make sense. So instead of cutting this 10.5 piece down to 10 1/4, I'm going to cut it down to 10, okay, which is going to give me 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, and 1/8. If you have questions, ask me. You may want to watch this a couple times. So I'm going to cut the paper first, and then we'll make it work. So this is the paper I'm going to do. Now, like I said, for height of the page, I'm going to cut this down to 7.5. Just simply taking 1/4 of an inch off to give me those mat borders. Now for width of the page, instead of 10.5, which is the total width of the page, I'm going to take 1/2 an inch off so I can have 2 1/4 of an inch gaps. Okay, so I'm going to go down to 10. Now this is a 12-inch piece of paper, and this only goes to 8 on this side, but if I take 2 inches off over here, I still get a 10-inch piece of paper. So that's what I'm going to do, measure from this side. So now I have a 7.5 inch piece of paper by 10. When we made this book, we scored at 4 inches in right here so we could make this punch. Now because we're changing things so that we can have a mat, we're only going to score in 3 3/4, okay, instead of 4. We're going to drop back a 1/4 of an inch. That will give us this gap on our paper. When I show you, it'll make sense. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, instead of coming in and scoring at 6, which is where we would normally score, we're going to come in and score at 6 1/4. That will give us 3 3/4 of an inch right here. So I'm going to come right here and score at 6 1/4. Okay, so that gives me a 3 3/4 inch flap on this end. Bring our punch board back over. And here we're going to just punch on our score line. So we'll line our score line up right inside in the center of our little punch. That gives us 1. Then we'll flip it over and do it again using our score line as our guide. Okay, so now can you see how we have the same shape that we had? Now let's round these edges. So we'll line this up to the score line and punch. Line this one up to the score line and punch. I want to show you something. A lot of people have asked me, and I appreciate the questions. It really helps me. A lot of people have been asking me why I'm not using this corner rounder. I want to show you how deep this corner is compared to the corner we're actually using. See that corner? That's a really strong corner, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you want to use it, that's fine, but that's about a 1/2 inch curve. And it works really well for the leaves, and if you wanted to use this, it'd be beautiful, but for me, it's a little bit too much of a curve. But just wanted to show you guys how that one looked, because I have had some questions. Let me compare them for you. So you have this simple, small curve versus this large curve. I hope that helps. I think that will help. Okay, now that we have our piece scored, punched all the way around, we need to separate this piece from this piece so we can show that gap in the middle. And here's how we do it. If you're a perfectionist, you are going to want to line your cutting blade up with where this little divot is and where this little divot is and cut it right on the edge. I'll show you what I mean. If you do that, you get a nice straight edge, okay? If you don't do that, you get that little divot right here that grabs my finger, because that's actually the score line. So now I'm just going to put that back in my trimmer and cut that away. Like I said, a little fiddly for just a second, but once you do it, it's done. So now you see these pieces we've made? And here's my suggestion. If you're going to make the book with the flower punch and you're going to do the mats all the way throughout the book, I suggest while it's fresh in your head, going and cut all your mats. Do one and get it right with a scrap piece of paper, okay? Make sure you understand it, and then go ahead and cut all your mats while you're thinking about what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to mess yourself up. Or at least I would mess myself up. So I'll bring the book back over. And now I will show you that this will lay in here and have its 1/4 of an inch gap all the way around. I should say edging. And then this lays here and has its 1/4 of an inch, just like it's supposed to. Cool enough? I think so. Okay, let's adhere this down. And again, I'm going to use my sticky tape from Jamie at Punch Place Plus. I love this stuff. It's super easy to tear. I will tell you this, it's easier to tear than my score tape. I think it is. You guys have been so supportive for this album. I appreciate how much you guys are giving me your feedback and let me know what you think. It just means so much to me. And now this one. Now understand, this part is tricky to wrap your head around, but I hope by doing it as slow as I did it, that helped you to do that. But if not, just stop the video and go back and watch it again till you understand it. But now I think you can see that, you know, we have multiple pages here with this flap. And by taking that 1/2 inch off of here, we take 2 1/8 inch gaps here and 1/4 inch in the middle. I think it makes sense. I hope it does. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. I do not mind answering questions. I actually love answering questions because then I feel like I'm really helping you guys. Okay, so on my design, which is here, I decided I wanted to do a pocket here. And you know what I forgot about was that these have these little cut-ins, the little curved edges. And that's fine, no problem. I'm just going to have to make that do the same thing. And it's just going to be right here. So let's work on that. The first thing I want to do is decide how tall I want my pocket to be. And I know this is a 7.5 piece of paper. So I think I want my pocket to go to about, I think I want my pocket to be 3 inches tall. Because I want it kind of low because I want my tags to show. So I'm going to do a 3-inch tall pocket by the same width here. So I'm going to measure that. And I'm not going past the matted edge. I'm just going to go to the matted edge. So it's going to be 3 inches high by 6 1/4 wide. Now here's something cool. This is where this paper is going to come in handy. Because these are the scrap pieces that I've got. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 3 inches to start with. And then down to 6 1/4. So bringing the flower punch board back over. This is my piece that'll be my pocket. And I want to curve this bottom edge here. So what I'm going to do is put that into my punch board like so. Line it up to the score line and get my little curve. Okay? So now when I bring my book back over, this will match that curve exactly. Isn't that cool? Alright, the other thing I want to do is I want to do a little half circle punch in here just by using a circle punch. And I have this 1 1/4 inch punch. I'm going to turn it over where I can see this side and line this up in halfway. And I'm so eyeballing this part, guys. I'm not going to stress too much about that. If it's not just right, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Because I'm just putting tags in there. Alright, so in this pocket, I'm going to adhere it down using wet glue right to that edge. Just like so. Cute. Okay. You guys have also given me some great ideas on adhesive. Somebody mentioned that fabric tack works on paper. And also E6000 is now making a fabric glue. So that would be a cool thing to think about when you're using the burlap. And of course here I'm just using my favorite, which is Aleene's. I'm just going to stick this down from my pocket. And once we get stuff in there, you'll really be able to see that. But I love this busy paper. I just love the paper. I just want you to be able to see the paper if nothing else, because I think it is gorgeous. And I'm getting lots of comments from you guys that you guys are liking it too, so I'm glad of that. Okay, now I told you I was going to do the waterfall page over here, or the ladder page, or what have you on this side. I don't think we'll have time to do that in this video tonight, so I'm going to work on another part of it. If you remember, I showed you that I wanted to do a whole mat that goes across here like a square. So let's do the measurement for that. Alright, so I'm back to my 6.5 inches as far as width. So I think I'm going to do this one at 6 inches. It might end up being 6 by 6. Nope. It's going to be 6 inches by 7.25. Just going to bring this over, make another mark for me to remember. 6 by 7.25. And I'm actually going to make 2 cuts. One is going to be the base that I'm going to do out of the craft, and the next cut is going to be out of the pattern paper. So that cut will be 5 3/4 by 7. And this will make sense in just a second. So I have a piece of craft paper. I'm going to cut it down to 6 inches to start with. And then by 7 1/4 according to my measurements. And now going back into my paper pad, I'm going to take this piece and do the mat for that one, which is going to be 5 3/4. I'm actually going to cut it at 5 3/4 this way, just because of the way I want the pattern to lay. By 7 even. That'll give me my mat measurements. Okay, so now I'm going to put these two together, like so. And I'm just going to adhere them with my sticky tape. Let's adhere these two together. Okay. I know I'm bringing the book in and out of the shot a lot, but I want to show you what I'm doing. So now I'm just going to come over here and make sure that this does what I want, and it does. You see how this lines up to the edge, and then I have just this kind of inlay mat here, okay? I will be adhering this down to this flap, and I'll show you what will happen. So when we open it, we'll get this. So it kind of extends our page out. But I don't want that to be just plain craft, so I want to go ahead and put some paper there on the back side to mat that as well. But I don't want to mat the whole thing. I want to use some of these skinnier pieces. So this tells me that I only need a piece that is a minimum of 2.5 inches wide. So I'm just going to find a piece that's 3 inches wide. So I'll be cutting it 3 inches wide, but I'll also cut it the same 7 inches that I did this mat piece. So I'm going to do that real quick. And I'm going to sticky tape this onto the back. This is the back of that mat we made. Okay. Now because I cut this at 3 inches, I know as long as I mat this edge, as long as I put it to this edge correctly, I'll have enough overlap that I won't end up with any of this showing. So this way we're not wasting any paper, and we're using some of those small scraps. Now while I got it like this, I'm going to go ahead and put some sticky here along this edge, because I know it'll be stuck down. And some here. I'm not going to put any here. I'm going to put that on the actual page so I know I have it in the right spot. So since this will be sticking like this, I know that these two pieces are covered, but I'm going to put a piece here so I'm also safe. Just going to bring it in a little bit. And that down. Okay, let's peel it. Alright, so now we'll put this in place right where I want it. Like so. Now I hope you can see this on camera, but here's what we end up with. This page will now open, see this? Like this. So now we end up with this, and this is a perfect place for journaling. We can put another mat here and journal. But see that? And all this paper makes it very sturdy, because this is 2 full pieces of paper plus a third plus this. Makes this pretty sturdy. So there you go. So now we just need to put our tags in here, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I feel like that's a lot for you to catch on to tonight. If you're following along with me and trying to do this with me, that will get you caught up. Tomorrow, or Wednesday rather, not tomorrow, on Wednesday, we'll work on this waterfall, and we will also mat the back. I may go ahead and do the mat the back. No, I'll do that with you guys so you can see me do it. But so the next time we get together, we'll be doing this waterfall, okay? And we'll make the tags to go in this pocket. Alright guys, if you have any questions, leave them below. I really enjoy that you guys are following along with me. I appreciate all the great ideas. The suggestions for this page have been super fun. I can't wait to get to that. So I will see you guys on Wednesday. Have a great one. Bye-bye.